Okay, I think that we're on and that we can start. So, hello everyone. Hope you're having a great day and that you joined our webinar. Another interesting topic, another interesting guest. So we'll continue to talk about the application of AI in business, and since simplifies dealing with process improvement and process, we will try to explain how we use AI to help us with the process transformation projects and also how it helps us in our work, in our analysis to kind of get more and better understanding of the business processes and to kind of uh, give them better results with our clients. So today with me are our CEO Ivan and also our dear guest from the company called Soroco, who is our partner in these projects that actually created this AI tool that we will hear more about. So here with us is Minoru. He's the EMEA sales director from Soroco. So hi and welcome, Minoru. How are you doing?
Very good, Dragan. Thank you so much for having me.
Great, thanks. Thank you also for being able to show up and maybe share a bit more insight how we use AI in process visibility and also process transformation. So I think before we start, if you can maybe briefly introduce yourself, how you came to Soroco, how was your experience so far, and also maybe share how the whole partnership with Simplify also kicked off.
Brilliant. No, thank you so much, Dragan. So yeah, hi everyone. My name is Minoru, based out of London, and at Soroco, I manage EMEA business and been with the company for about 7 years. And it's been an incredible journey because when I joined it, we were this whole AI buzz or market was not very well known. So it was a kind of a new space, an emerging space, and then we were kind of trying to create this kind of awareness. And now it's been great to see the market picking up. And from a company, when I joined, we were about kind of 50 people maybe globally, and then now we are probably like over 10x that number. 6-7 years down the line. So it's been a great journey and an experience over the last 7 years. And prior to joining Soroco, I was a consultant. So I was working at McKinsey and Company, advising clients on digital strategy, digital transformation. So it was very strategic problems that we were helping to solve. But then what I saw the opportunity was at Soroco is that we kind of help solve the same problems, but instead of kind of the traditional consulting-led approach, we're using AI tech to do it, which I thought was very exciting feature to do or exciting aspect. So hence I made the switch. And then to your final question on how our partnership with Simplify and Soroco came about, it was in fact actually a mutual client of ours who had worked with Soroco to do the discovery of optimization, and then you Simplify to kind of do the realization. And they connected us, the two of us, to say, hey, okay, you're doing, you're basically in that kind of end-to-end value stream of discovery to realization. So you guys should speak to each other, and then that essentially completes the story. So it was very grateful, and then it's been an incredible experience. And I know, we'll be talking about a case study today as well. It's very grateful to the partnership.
Yeah. Thank you as well. I mean, I think that is the one big thing we kind of share the similar passion towards optimizing the business, actually achieving some tangible things, because we also kind of started as consultants, but we saw that many companies stay just on that big checklist to do things, but we wanted to kind of help them to actually achieve something. So Ivan, can you maybe add a bit more on about whole collaboration with Soroco, how everything was so far?
Yeah, thank you, Dragan, and thank you, Minoru, for joining us. And I believe we will create maybe better and a little bit different journey together. So you will be excited in the next 7 years more than you are now.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what could I say is that first when we got to know each other, like for us, we were actually also started as a consultants, as Dragan said, and we were searching for the tools that can actually help us. And then we always have this buzzword, okay, AI will change you, AI will leave you out of your job, and then AI will do everything, And we were like thinking that maybe this is going to happen. And when we looked at the scout first time, we said, oh, okay, this is something that's extremely good, and this is something that can actually help us and like help us be faster and help us see some things that we weren't able to see before. So we are in business analysis, we are seeing a lot. We kind of go very deeply into the processes. As Dragan said, we have really a big passion in optimizing and streamlining it, using lean, using Six Sigma to like fix everything and to have like a process that is clear and streamlined until the end, and when we automate it. But we always miss something because you cannot see everything. And then when we realize that with Scout we can really see everything, and we can realize a little bit better understand how we can approach the process, and we can also better understand, is this a big deal or not, what are the percentages, is the timing, what is actually the tool. This is something that really tricked us. And actually we had the same client, and then we understand that we are the ones who can realize the things that are in insights. And this is so far a very beautiful cooperation. I believe in the future together we will also can improve and continuously improve the tool and continuously improve us in way how we see insights and how we can fix the things inside the company, actually achieve new values for the clients and bring them some very good projects and good stuff.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I mean, and also I like the part that you also mentioned is that we already see big potential to continue to grow together. We saw, and we're always exchanging some ideas how to, let's say, improve all of our synergy that we have. Yeah, I mean, the best way I think to kind of explain why are we so fit for, let's say, collaboration and why our partnerships work so well is to maybe explain this AI tool or the tool called Scout, and to explain the capabilities of that tool. And then I think that will lean into then explaining how Simplify fits into that whole story, and then how we support companies to with all the information that the tool provides, and then how to get something and improve something in real life. So Minoru, I'll give the word to you to maybe start and also explain us a bit what is Scout, and also maybe some of these terms that usually clients also ask us, because we noticed like the awareness about business processes started to increase because of the whole AI initiatives. They realized that in order to implement any AI tools, they need good data, and for you to have good data, you need a good process. So I think people started asking questions, and the main, let's say, buzzword now is process mining, sometimes task mining, and this and that. So can you maybe explain to us the difference, and also how we're scouting that whole story?
Certainly, yes, absolutely. So, just what I'll do is I'll take about 15 minutes to introduce briefly the company, and then also the technology, how it works, and also, how that translates in tangible value for you. So just kind of to keep it brief and kickstart, Soroco was founded by techies from Harvard, MIT, and CMU, and that's reflected in our culture as a deep tech company with over 600 plus patents into the unique way of how Scout works, which I'll explain today. And then for a relatively small company, we are proud to serve over 200 plus customers, out of which over 25 are global or Fortune 500 or equivalent companies. And of course, we're a global company with operations across Americas, EU, and APAC. And then moving on, I think you mentioned the different terms of process mining, task mining, and this is an ever-evolving space, which is also what keeps it exciting. And analysts call it process discovery, process intelligence, and then the latest kind of terminology that we also believe accurately explains what Soroco does is mentioned by Everest, which is also a very respected analyst firm in this space. And for the third year in a row, we've been marked right as a leader, as you can see in the top right corner. And they call this digital interaction intelligence, and we'll demystify it a little bit as we go as well. But essentially what this means is, using technology to understand or get visibility into how work gets done. So moving on, just in terms of what the purpose of Soroco, right? So why we exist. You've all heard the saying, you cannot improve what you do not measure. And we kind of added a small extension to that because we believe that you cannot measure what you do not see. So visibility in the context of enterprises to make decisions, to improve the way things work is absolutely critical. And and what we mean by this visibility, when we look at how work gets done in the context of modern enterprises, majority of the work happens when people interact with software. So as we are doing today in this kind of webinar, we are using a laptop to essentially interact with the different softwares in order to get a certain outcome. And this interaction data, as you can imagine, it's very sandy. It's clicks and keystrokes, and then this is extremely complex, has a lot of variability in the sheer volume it generates. So, for example, even compared to social media data, right? You see that we interact with Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and other tools, and this interaction data when people actually do interact with software to get work done is in fact 72 times larger than the top 5 social media networks generate. So as you can imagine, this is a rich source of data which actually we believe holds the secret sauce, if you will, on how work actually gets done. But then traditionally this data, because as I mentioned, it's massive and complex, and as a result there's not a lot of technologies that look at extracting business value from this. And to give you a little bit of context, right, so in terms of the sheer scale of this interaction data, in a small team of 20, on an annual basis, there's about 5 million interactions that take place. Let's look at a team of 2,000, it's about 500 million. Like a big business unit, like a shared service function of 20,000 people, it's about 5 billion interactions. And then a typical Fortune 500 company with around 100,000 people generates 500 billion interactions a year. This is insanely massive, and then it is basically the true reality or the essence behind how work gets done. Because this is extremely massive and complex, not a lot of technologies or companies have tried to tap into this market to understand how work gets done. So as a result, when we look at how other enterprises typically go about understanding how work gets done, there are 3 different ways that we've seen in the market, right? So one is they typically ask SMEs. So this is the classic, let's do a workshop, let's get some SMEs, let's ask how work gets done. They will explain the process, or there are these SOPs there, or documentation. They can read these SOPs to get a sense of how the process is done, or they can look at system logs. So this is basically in the back end, what are the transaction or system logs that generates, and let's look at it. All have merits in their own right, but of course, as you can appreciate, none of these actually really get this true visibility. So for example, when you ask an SME, they will typically say how they remember. They will not know how everyone in their team does it, or they might not always recollect the exception parts and the full comprehensive way. So they will just typically say what they believe is the kind of the easiest way to explain. And then to just bring to life, right? So when, say, we ask this, this is an example of accounts payable process. If we ask an SME how the process is, how they do the process, this is typically how they would, explain. But the true reality is often very different, right? Which is, they go into applications like Outlook, go into Excel to do some calculations, other third-party websites. And this is the true reality of how the process is done, which often does not get captured, which then results into, inadequate, benefits when we automate or do some system enhancement application, and it creates a lot of rework and chaos. So that is essentially what Scout aims to do. Where we've built the tech behind to collect this interaction data that is massive and complex. We built our own AI models to fine-tune or to work specifically on this interaction data, and then bring to life or create this visibility on how work gets done through what we call the Scout work graph. So what is Scout, right? So it essentially, what it does is it helps you find the leading sources of friction that's hurting the business, and it gives recommendations on how we can optimize it. And how it does is, as I mentioned, it's an AI model that's specifically trained on interaction data, which is human to machine interactions. and then we connect that data into tangible business outcomes. And we do this completely protecting end user privacy. So just to kind of bring to life, Scout is not a kind of a productivity measuring tool where it gives insights, for example, answer questions on how much did, Dragan, take a lunch break for, or, how many minutes was, Minoru on the phone. That kind of individual productivity measuring tool is not something that's possible with Scout. But then it's very much built towards creating empathy at a team level to understand or give visibility into what are the sources of friction that's hurting the team, and how can the business improve as a whole. So there's many kind of data security features like, end user, it's completely anonymized. Its insights are aggregated at a team level. There is, high-end encryption. So, that's why we've been able to deploy, especially not just pretty much all the countries in Central Eastern Europe, but across, countries like Germany, France, UK, where there are labor unions, workers' councils as well. So just to kind of move on in terms of what it delivers and to try and bring this to life, it translates into different offerings at Soroco, where, for example, there are 4 main pillars that we have. One is around Scout for Ops, which is more towards operational excellence. It gives all the process visibility and help deliver, business improvements through, say, M&A synergies and other process improvement. There is Scout for IT, which is more tailored towards kind of CIO profiles, where it identifies or gives visibility into what are all the different applications that people are using, and how does that connect to key business processes, and how we can optimize it. And then even in not just the applications, but around the data, storage, how do we optimize those things as well? And then Scout for migration. We see a lot of clients moving, for example, from SAP ECC to S4HANA. And we have many clients, especially in this region, that we work with to help accelerate and de-risk this migration. And of course, Scout for AI, where you see a lot of clients that are heavily investing in generative AI. And usually it's very much based on assumptions, right? They do a small POC, it looks good, the feedback is positive, they scale it across the organization, and they don't know what is actually changing in terms of the productivity at an organization level. Are people actually using it? And using it the right way. So Scout, because it works on interaction data, is a great kind of lever for us to give visibility into what is that adoption of, are these investments effective? So hopefully that brings to life on what interaction data is and how Scout essentially reverse engineers that data and translate into tangible business recommendations. And this is essentially, to Dragan's point, this is the discovery. So we help with identifying what are the inefficiencies, what are the sources of friction, and give recommendations on how we can improve. And that's where the kind of the complementary fit with Simplify comes in, because then they are the experts who can then take these recommendations and help our clients actually realize the tangible business outcomes. So I think that's a nice segue to the next one, which is essentially Simplify introduction. But hopefully that helps.
Thank you, Minoru. I mean, I think this was a great introduction to the Scout and the capabilities of AI. If we're talking about process discovery, I think, at least for me, like, it was also when I heard it first, this big, let's say, impact on the number of interactions between people. If you start also from the small team, and that's also just the digital interaction. You also have, the live interaction with people, different personalities, different way of thinking and perception. So definitely that's the part where things get complex, and when sometimes processes get complex, as you said, it remains on one person, one SME, somebody experienced within the company that kind of knows the whole thing, but for others, they don't have that visibility, and that's where the inefficiencies in the processes start. And actually, for us, it was also that you said sometimes even the SMEs don't recall everything, and that was our challenge in our analysis projects. We would have to do a bigger number, let's say, of workshops and consultation and revising all of the things with the SMEs and process stakeholders, just so we don't miss anything, because people, can't remember maybe at the moment some of these maybe exceptions that don't occur very often, or there's just, again, the personality part, just the resistance of people. Maybe they don't want to talk with you, they don't like you, they don't like your tone, or maybe they think that the point is maybe in jeopardizing their work. So they're cautious of what they will do. And as you said, Scout kind of gives a pretty, let's say, argumented visibility of the process and how teams work. I also like that you highlighted the part that the goal is not to name somebody and say, hey, you are the slowest or you did this wrong. The point is to show that we can improve something. So I like that you also mentioned that. Ivan, can you maybe tell us what comes next after we get this information from Scout? What do we do?
I'll try, but let me just give small feedback. So thank you, Minoru, because I always, when I listen to you, I learn something new. And every time you have the presentation, you actually explain something new. So you're improving and putting it much clearer to everybody to understand. I would say, Dragan, yeah, SMEs sometimes don't remember, but sometimes they really don't know what the people are doing. Yeah, because they know how process should look like. They know what they teach their persons or their employees or their team. But then people tend to do process how they think it should be done, or they like some things. Some people like to have their own files. Some people like to do this first, then that first, and then maybe we when we try to see. Because usually in Simplify, we are not making workshops. We try to go to the Gamba, to try to go to the place to see what actually they are doing. But even though we cannot see everything. Also, what I really like about Scout, and what is the thing that we always mention, is that you are a real-time software. So you're analyzing the real-time data in the real-time environment. You're not analyzing the past, the history, because the history is not now, it's not present. Things are changing. Always in the companies, we see some processes and they say, okay, we have all of our processes, but we mapped them like 4 years ago. 4 years ago, it was a totally different world. So now we need the real-time things, and we need the real-time data, because maybe SME knows and it remembers that it was a big problem 1 month ago, but maybe now it's not, because when you're actually getting the data, then you can realize and you can understand, you can see what needs to be done. So one of the things that we also notice is that even though we are like trying to understand and see what people are doing, when you watch them, they try to be faster, they try to be better, or they try to improvise something, and etc. Here, when you actually have Scout working in the back and you're just doing your normal job, then you can see the real picture and understand really what the process looks like, and to see all the gaps and everything that we have. So this is something that I really found very impressive, and something that is really helping us in our way. So what comes next is that when we have all the insights, is the same when you know you're sick, but somebody needs to fix you. Yeah, so that you go to the doctor, then he gives you the medicine, and then you need to actually follow what he said, and then actually get better again, better. So what are we doing is taking the insight together with Soroco, together with the company, and trying to make and actually delivering the solutions for what we see. Because as we know, in Scout, we have standardization and automation as the recommendations. There is one part in between that is optimization of the processes, and sometimes you can just optimize the process. You don't need to automate or standardize, because sometimes there is no business case, there is no value that we can bring. So we are watching at the standardize, optimize, and automate the processes, and we are here to actually deliver the service. So we notice that sometimes some organizations, they really have capacities and they know what they need to do, but because of some priorities, of all the other reasons, all the other things they need to do, they tend to like delay and maybe never do what Scout tells them to do. So we are here to actually boost this and to make this happen, and to make it really realistic, so they can really have processes that are automated, or processes that are standardized, or optimize with their help, and changing some things inside. And it's not, we always try to say, it's not just RPA, it's like a lot of different things, how we can automate the process, how we can change the systems, the core systems, applications, what we can do in the back, how can we use AI, not just to analyze, but to actually do the automation. So I believe, Dragan, you have a very, very good case that you are going to present, and hopefully you take from here.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, a really important part is that real-time analysis, because often what we encounter is that we start talking about the process with the person and we say just that, like, can we maybe collect some information, maybe also prior in the history to see what was going on, but they say, okay, but 2 weeks ago we changed our core system, or we moved to the different ERP, or something's changed in the process, and now it's occurring even more because of AI, because of the rapid changes of the market and the technology. So the let's say best approach is to try to adapt in real time by tracking what is going on at the moment. So definitely it's something that is very important, and that helps us to kind of then create the best then solution for the company. So yeah, I will share this short case, a few of the things that we were able to share for one of the bigger companies in Serbia from the insurance industry that we did a project where the idea was actually to see how the processes looks like. So their initial, let's say, idea was to actually get that process visibility. They wanted to know how the processes looks like, because, for example, here we were observing some processes that were in the, let's say, finance and accounting department. Usually when you talk with people and you say there is some payment process or some invoicing process, they always think it is something that's pretty straightforward, right? You have to prepare the invoice, you have to put it in the system, you have a couple of information that you need to write down, the date, the amount, the client, and so on, and you uploaded it into some system to kind of complete the process. But in real life, that's not always the case, and we have a lot of different things and variations in the process, and that is something where the company actually wanted to have, let's say, a really clear approach with the actual data to support all of their concerns that they had about the efficiency of their processes and how good their processes are, how much effort do they actually take for people. So here is something where we analyzed with Scout a bit over 40 processes, and some of the information that we were able to get is actually something that supported their concerns regarding the amount of that manual effort that they were doing that was causing also some errors in the process, additional corrections of the files, or involving additional people also in the process as well, and also to kind of show how much time is spent on, let's say, things that are not actually the part of the process where the value is created, but actually on the preparation or maybe finding the right information that you need and so on to actually then perform the step that is required in the process. So there were a lot of these things where people were just looking for information or spending their time just to collect what they need to then do the process. So as you can see, like over 50% was spent on these non-core applications that were required in the processes, due to that manual collection of data. Of course, the most popular and the usual examples are Outlook, or tracking things and looking for things through emails, and of course Excel files on the different shared folders and subfolders and so on. And also another part that I will also show you was something that was even for us a bit of a shock, was the amount of time that was spent on switching between one and another application. Again, just showing how much time is spent for a person to go, let's say, to the Outlook to collect one information, they go to Excel for the second one, they open up, let's say, one accounting application for the third part. For the fourth part, they open another module in SAP, and then they actually go to that fifth application, maybe some DMS or some application where they actually then perform the process. So they need to switch between each other to actually complete their process. And what we were also able to, so these are some of the things that we were able to, let's say, extract from the Scout and from the different reports that Scout is able to generate. One was also showing the amount of time that people are spending throughout the day, let's say, to complete their processes. So, for example, here, because of their hybrid model of work, people were allowed also to work during weekends or maybe outside working hours. But actually, here we saw that there were a lot of people that were working, let's say, really late in the late hours or super early in the morning, just to finish their things that they had to do, and then to kind of show the amount of workload also that they had to complete. Also, there were different, of course, peaks and different trendings, let's say, in their amount of work, but we were able also to show that, of course, usually for these accounting and financial departments, there are peaks close to the end of the month, of course, because of the closing months and invoices and postings. So that was also shown here on the weeks or the week span that we actually did the recording and tracking of these processes. And for us, we wanted to actually highlight for the purpose of this webinar now, just these two, let's say, major things that were taking so much time for people that were not so big, such a big part of their processes. So one is definitely spending time to read and send emails. A lot of times, they are receiving some emails maybe that they don't even need to be informed. There is something where a person sends it to someone but puts 10 other colleagues in CC just for the sake of it. But that person receives it, and then he gets a huge, let's say, inventory or big pile of emails that they need to then open or review and so on. And actually, we were able to see. So what we were doing here is we were tracking two teams, but in both teams, as you can see, they were spending almost over an hour of time to actually read those emails and find what they need per day. And also on a daily basis, they were spending around 20 minutes to actually send out all of the emails that they need, which is actually not, let's say, a big part of their everyday work that they need to do. And here also we also were able to get the information about the amount of, let's say, communication internally also, but also towards these external domains or clients and maybe some vendors, suppliers, and so on that they were communicating with. Again, just to show the amount of time that is also spent maybe internally, again, to find the right information that you need. And this is just a part of, let's say, emails. You have a whole nother thing through MS Teams or maybe Skype or some Slack or some other communication tool that they're using, again, where people are spending so much time just to get the information that they need for the processes. And then the second one, a big one for us as well, or a finding that was also, very impactful for the company, was to hear that, people are also spending a large amount of time to switch between applications and also to just open the folders, open the subfolders of the date of the company, of the bank, and so on, to kind of put and store the documentation. And actually, that was also something where we saw that people were also what is in common, let's say, case is that people sometimes store those input files on their desktop folders just for their personal, let's say, use and then track because it's easier for them to have everything in that place. But that also causes a lot of time to do it and create and rename the folder and put everything what you need. So actually here also we can see just for the switching, again, people are spending around 40 minutes on average, let's say, just to switch between applications to collect the data. And they spend a lot of time also on preparing all of the files and folders that they need. And here, for example, we had The biggest number was for the one team where they were doing an average of 50 switches per day, just for between two applications. So they had to do that 50 times to work on their processes. But as you can see, the others as well had a pretty bigger numbers, 20 switches per day just between two applications to collect something. And here, this is the, let's say, one of the most important part, and also that help us with process standardization, optimization, and automation regardless. So here is Scout provides us an overview of all of the processes and all the, let's say, effort that is required for those processes to be executed. And besides that, he also gave us some estimations on where is the best direction for that process to go into further, let's say, improvement. So whether it is better to standardize it or automate it. And as you can see, it can also provide us with some, let's say, easier visualization. So it can group these processes into some quadrants to show which ones are maybe the best ones to move forward with, because they're the, let's say, we can achieve high savings with them, but also they're not too complex and have a pretty good percentage for the automation. So they're, let's say, their maturity is already in that as is stage good enough to be automated. So this definitely helps us to have a list, some form of prioritization, and kind of then decide which processes should we focus on first, to kind of then enter them into the pool of improvement. What we did is we gave top 5 recommendations, let's say, that we extracted from Scout, which processes, let's say, should be the first candidates that we should continue and move into the detailed analysis to see, okay, how we can now improve this whole process and achieve maybe even bigger savings that the Scout estimated just from the automation part. So, like I said, Scout really helps us to have a clear overview of the processes. We were not able to show it maybe on a future webinars, and of course, I encourage everyone to ask questions and to reach out to us, maybe what you would like to see, maybe on our next webinar, where we would like to maybe deep dive into some of these segments and show you. But actually, Scout, of course, provides you with the processes with the detailed steps, and it shows you all of the screens, let's say, that the person, or all of the steps and interactions that person did when they were performing their process. So you can always open it, and you can also export the process maps. You can also export the standard operating procedure, or a document where you can see each interaction with the screen, with the print screen, and kind of have a really clear overview of what is going on in the process. So these are all of the things and all of the findings that we use for then our further analysis, and to kind of see, do the processes need to go to first the standardization part. Usual example is when you have a same process that is executed by, let's say, 5 teams that are maybe in different locations, different countries, and so on. And then you can see that the team number, let's say 2, was maybe the quickest, but they also had the most amount of errors maybe in the process. On the other hand, you had, let's say, a team 4 that was the slowest, but didn't have the errors. So this helped us to find the, let's say, best example of all of the teams that we can use as a starting point. And we can say, okay, this one is the best practice because it didn't take the most time. It was not also the quickest, but it didn't have, maybe also didn't have no errors. Maybe this is the best one to kind of start off and standardize and, let's say, enable the team to work based on that model. And then we want to see, okay, let's try to maybe further improve that process. So then we go to the optimization path, where we are now trying to find inefficiencies in the process, or maybe some steps in the process that we don't even need So we want to extract, let's say, only the activities that bring value to the company and to the clients. So then we are optimizing the process by also not only changing the process steps, but also maybe changing the technology as well, changing the tools that they're using, maybe improving the templates that they're using, improving the, let's say, tool itself by making some additional fields, calculations that can support the employees in their work. And then we get to the last part, which is automation. So when we, let's say, created a really structured and efficient process, now we just want to automate the part where we don't, so we eliminate, let's say, the manual work of people and enable them to work on more creative and more complex tasks and kind of bring more value to the company itself, but also to their satisfaction, because nobody, I think, wants to do these boring, let's say, tasks that you need to do maybe for over 100 and 200 times throughout your day with just some clicking and copy paste actions. This is something that now technology can help us and kind of liberates us from those type of work. So I think that would be all from our side at the moment. We wanted to give you an introduction actually to this technology. I think it's also at least in our region and maybe some also countries, still a new thing, a new topic, and everybody's mentioning AI, but I think, because of the amount of tools and everything, people get confused. So we wanted to give you a brief introduction to the technology and to kind of show you what are the potentials, what are the capabilities, and how it can help you to have a clear visibility of your processes, because regardless of what you want to change in your business, you need to first understand what do you do and maybe where are the areas that you can improve. And I think that visibility can help you to drive any type of initiatives. So I will check if we have some questions from the viewers. But in the meantime, Minoru, do you maybe have something to add after you saw also this part of the case? Do you maybe would like to highlight something from that part?
No, of course, yeah. And this was a very small pilot, so the data collection was only for 3-4 weeks. But then to use Ivan's analogy, right, of the kind of going to the doctor and getting the kind of the symptoms, you see like the description of the symptoms were what you saw earlier. Okay, how many time people are spending on different domains like Outlook, how much time are people switching back and forth, and then essentially that diagnosis was that 2x2 matrix that you saw. Where it identifies all the processes that this team's doing, and then kind of gives the recommendations to say, okay, out of these, 10 processes, these 5 are the ones that you should automate, that will give you the biggest savings, as well as, they're easy to do. So it essentially gives you those kind of symptoms of what would be those kind of potential red flags that you might want to double click into, but also the kind of the recommendations in terms of what can we do, right? And that's when kind of for example, Simplify consultants can take over to say, okay, this out of the tool will have the kind of the data driven view, but what it won't have is that kind of business context of for example, this was an insurance client. In the insurance world, what does good look like? As a result, what are the changes that needs to be done? So that's where then we also truly value the partnership with Simplify, because then they'll be able to layer the business context, the industry expertise, and then be able to help realize those outcomes to our clients. And so and this was a successful pilot where the CFO wants to scale this across her entire organization. So hopefully this partnership will grow even within this account, but also across the region as well. So it's still early days, but as Ivan mentioned, a lot of potential for us to work together and deliver explosive value to our clients.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, as you said, it really helped us to kind of have a real data-driven findings. So as we said, like sometimes during the workshops with the SMEs, with the process stakeholders, you don't get all the information, and sometimes People can say, well, I didn't understood your question, or maybe I didn't understood what was needed from my side to explain. In this way, we kind of let people to work like they would do in their everyday work, and we were able to get all of the necessary information that we need about the process and all of the variations in the process as well. And then we were able to use that to kind of continue to deep dive and then look for improvements. So yeah, definitely a huge potential to of course expand and continue. Even maybe
Yeah,
something
I'd like
to
to
add.
add that actually what Minor said before is that, and I like that the storyline is that we are not there to squeeze the team, like to push them at the maximum. The point is to improve the process. Yeah, that's the whole point. And even though the Dragon lunch break is quite unpredictable, but yeah, he likes to eat, and that's very good because he needs it for brain and for strength. But no one is interested in that. We are interested in the delivery, the results, and what we can achieve and bring some value. So I believe also that the client understand that, and that they're using this tool right, and because they cannot use it the other way, because there is a team and how team interacts. There are no people and stuff. So I want to add just one short question, because we had the same and similar question today and yesterday on the meetings we had, is regarding security. And can you tell us a little bit more, Minoru, about the security and how we achieved that we are actually looking just at the process, and we are not interested in what they are doing. So for example, some private chats when they go on website, do some private things. So
Yeah.
how Scout is helping us here?
No, great question, Ivan. And as this is very kind of close to our heart as a company as well, where, to the extent that, there has been clients that have come to us and say, hey, I want to use Scout to understand who's watching football in my organization during work, right? And we've literally walked away from, paid projects because we've essentially said, keep your money. This is, not something that we believe in, or, who we are as a company in terms of, finding out individual named user patterns of work. And this is something that's built into the product. There's many security, the data privacy features, but at a highest level, there are a few categories. So the first one to your question, firstly, also is that Scout only captures data from business specific applications that the team actually has control over. So for example, at the start of the project, the team will say, okay, I work in SAP, Excel, Outlook, Teams, and these kind of SharePoint applications, and Scout will only capture data from these. So that's how, when, for example, someone goes to their private banking website or to Amazon to do some shopping, none of that information is captured in the first place, because that's not what we're interested in. We're interested in how work gets done, how business processes work happen at a team level. So then Scout only captures that data. And then the second kind of category is that it's, to kind of a point that it's not individual user information that gets collected. It's always anonymized the moment Scout collects that data. And then all the insights that you see in the portal, in the insights presentations that you saw in the case study that Dragan showed, is aggregated at a team level. So it's not at a per user level that you see. So that's how we protect that individual kind of, people feeling that, this is going to watch how I personally do work and then gets reported to my leadership. So it's not that. And then also to kind of, we go that extra mile by us having inbuilt PII scrubbers. So that's personally identifiable information. So the moment Scout captures the data, all names, credit card numbers, email addresses, any information that can be linked to an individual person is automatically scrubbed out. And then these fields are customizable as well. So our customers can say, hey, okay, these particular fields are, particularly sensitive to us as an organization. So, we can customize it for Scout to not capture that. And then the fourth thing is that we are GDPR compliant. As I mentioned in my section, we've deployed Scout in countries like Germany, France, UK, where there are strong labor unions, workers' councils, and we work with investment banks. Here, Fortune Fortune 50 healthcare companies. All of these have very strict data security, compliance requirements. So we've never had a customer who wants to use Scout, but we failed the data security and the data privacy side. So this is something very important, and we've made sure that the product is built in such a way, Ivan, to not be able to use as a Big Brother software.
Exactly. Exactly.
Thank you there.
Yeah, I would also like to ask you another, let's say, popular question from our clients and companies that potentially want to get involved in this type of technology and projects, and that is more on this part of the user side. So, how does the whole implementation work and look like, and how long, again, does this process of recording everything and getting the insights also takes, because I think that is also an important one to discuss a bit more.
No, absolutely. Great question, Ragan. So, for example, when customers start off in our partnership, it's usually a kind of a pilot, very in a small team. Very quickly, we want to get the insights. So, for example, in this case, it was literally kind of 4 to 5 weeks. Typically, a pilot will maybe go to like 3 weeks, 3 months. That typically depends on the number of users, the frequency of the processors. So, for example, if there are weekly processors that we want to capture or monthly processors, then we need to scout for a couple of months. So that's how kind of the typical duration is. But then we get insights from the platform within 48 hours. So you'll be able to see, it's not a black box for 3 months and you get a portal or a PowerPoint presentation. It's within day 2, day 3, you'll be able to start getting insights into the user behavior. But typically also what we've seen with a lot of our clients is that they see many different use cases from Scout, right? Not just automation. Automation continues to be a common one, but then for example, getting visibility into how many different applications are people using, and then are they most effective, and then when we what are the different standardization potential, consolidation potential. So the idea that a lot of our clients use is that this interaction data becomes a strategy that they use to drive data driven decision making. So they keep Scout on, not just for like say 2-3 weeks, but essentially to say, get a picture of the as-is landscape, make those improvements, and by keeping Scout on, you'll be able to then measure, was those initiatives impactful? Did that really change the way we work? If not, what are the further tweaks that we need to do? So the idea is that we have a lot of clients who use this as an always-on technology to get continued visibility into how work gets done.
Yeah. I also, something that because we always try to, let's say, put ourselves in different shoes and in the user perspective. For us, it was also great to see that the whole part of the installation and recording of these processes was kind of straightforward and really easy to use. You sometimes don't have some tech savvy people, and then it's difficult to sometimes explain some things, but with this implementation, we didn't have, let's say, this type of issue. It was enough to, let's say, do some small workshop and explain to everyone how they're able to use it. So it was a really pretty straightforward process for them to do it. So I think that was also great and also a big advantage of the tool. Yeah. So we got one question from Marco. So thank you, Marco, for the question, first of all. So let me just read it to you. So it says, during the discussion, data was mentioned many times. Do you think that companies which plan to implement similar AI tools and solution in their processes, businesses, are aware of the importance of data reliability, cleanliness, accessibility, and other characteristics that eliminate trash-in, trash-out situations? So can you maybe share a bit more on this part, Minoru, about the data itself? And let's say, is there some part where we need to assess the data and see what we're working with when we are, let's say, implementing Scout?
No, great question, and that so the way and that the whole trash in trash out is a very common thing, and especially like these AI tools for using kind of the base data to generate this insight. So the idea is that it doesn't matter how good your AI models are, if the underlying data that runs, that the AI models run on top is incomplete, then your end outcomes will also not be complete, right? So that's why we collect the interaction data using the platform. A lot of our R&D and a lot of our patterns have gone into how we uniquely capture this data. So then, as explained, when in my kind of how Scout works section, what's the data that we collect is essentially across any application or any system, how people interact, right? So down to the levels of clicks and keystrokes, people switching back and forth, different applications, different screens, different modules, and we collect this data on a real-time basis, which then that way it's not, the cleanliness is real, right? It's real time. It's, it's basically the true source of how work gets done. And that's the data that we run our AI models on. So that way, then there's no bias, there's no analysis, there's no, it's not outdated in that, the way, it's not, 3-month-old data, or it's not incomplete as well. So, there are some tools that work on, say, the core ERP application alone, but we often see that about 60-70% of the time is actually spent on, other unstructured applications like Excel, Outlook. So the idea is that the data that we collect is across any application and on a near real-time basis. So that way, then when we run our AI models, the data is clean, and as a result, we get to the best outcome possible.
Yeah.
I would
So
like to
let's
add.
say, yeah,
Sorry.
go ahead, Ivan. Go ahead.
I would also like to thank Marco, and it's a really great question. And based on our experience, I can say, and I think Dragan will agree, that companies, I believe, they are not fully aware, or they are not aware at all of the importance of the data. And for this type of work that Scout is providing, I think we can just highlight that more. Yeah. So for Scout to work, because it's collecting the real time things that are happening on computer, we can have whatever in the company, but afterwards, when we come into place and say, okay, let's now automate something and let's do something with this, then the first step would be like to fix your data and to fix your stuff, because you don't have like trash in, trash out situations. And also, I will give a few examples. So in one bank, we have a situation that for one process, they are using 18 applications. And I'm not counting Excel, Word, Outlook. I mean, real applications. Some of them are core applications, some of them are systems like DMS and stuff, and some of them are some legacy software. Somebody built some app to help him this and that, and etc. So, and what is the results? They are generating 18 types of data in 18 types of databases. They don't talk to each other, so you have total mess of data in the back. And of course, somebody types my name wrong in one application or in 5 out of 18 applications, and then we have a mess. And then it stays for 5 or 6 years or for 10 years because no one is talking about it. And then if we are really going to scale up and build a like end-to-end automation and the system that will really work, I think that we should, of course, first look at the data. I have personal one situation, and I'll finish with this. When I gave my email, but they didn't write it down with white company that we worked with, and 7 different people were sending me email, the wrong email, and for 7 different people, I told them like, but this is not my email. This is my email. And they said, okay, we changed it in the system. Don't worry. And the next time, I always get on the wrong email. So because they are using different applications, they don't have one place, and they say, okay, this is the email of the person, and we're using just that and change it everywhere. Those are the things that comes after the Scout enlightens us with what we have, and I think for sure this is the first step that should be done before we are going into heavily automation. Of course, task automation, some quick fixes can be done, but some broader and scalable thing without fixing the data first is pretty much unavailable.
Yeah, and there was actually a use case on this exact question alone, where we work with a Fortune 50 healthcare company, where we deployed Scout to understand the effectiveness of their AI investments. So what Scout actually found was that people are using that AI tool, but then also goes and to the underlying system to verify whether the AI tool gave the correct answer. And then because of that, I think what Scout highlighted in that project was people actually don't trust that the underlying data that the AI model runs on is accurate. So then they go back to validate it. So that's exactly the question, that people don't believe that the data is accurate, which causes the whole implementation to be ineffective.
But you have 21st century example. But we had example where people are checking with the calculator, is the Excel doing the right calculation?
Yeah.
So you have a lot of things people are not believing of what they see. Yeah, so that's the normal stuff in business.
Yeah, I mean, that was the perfect example of that. I would not add too much on this one, and we're also running with our time. So I think we don't have any more questions, but if somebody feel
And
free,
we have
of course,
10 seconds left.
yeah, reach out to us with the questions. We will be more than happy to answer. So thank you, everyone, and see you in the next one. Thank you,
Thank you so
Minoru.
much.
Thank you,
Thank
Minoru.
you.
Thank you, Dragan.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Graham.